And we're back with another episode of the Youth Ministry Booster Podcast. Hanging out with my friend Daryn.
Daryn,
give it up for Daryn.
Hello.
The autocorrect is never going to be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
Daryn Fox, how are you, friend?
Man, I'm doing good. It's so great to be here in your garage studio this morning.
Thank you. Take a look around. Yeah, look on the refrigerator and wonder.
Books, the hanging plants, the refrigerator of wonder.
That's it. No. Well, when you work from home, you try to make it cozy, even if it is the garage or whatever.
Absolutely.
So, it's climate controlled, you got to appreciate the AC in the garage.
We never had one of those growing up. That was like if you were rich. You
the
had
garage
the
fridge.
Gatorade in the garage.
Gatorade in the garage. That's right. Well, the boys like to grab a Capri Sun for soccer out of the garage. No, it's
That's
good.
awesome.
It's good. It was a hand-me-down fridge, though. That's always my favorite story, is that most garage fridges used to belong in the house, and then they were like exiled out to the garage.
Yeah, they didn't have the water spigot in it.
That's right. Like how
so they go to the garage.
You don't make ice, leave. Yeah. You belong in the garage. Wait, in a few years, they're going to have a lot of garage fridges that are making ice.
Some of them are getting nicer. I was actually at my friend's house the other day. I go into her garage and I'm like, this is the nicest garage fridge I've ever seen. It's LG. It had the water spigot.
Did it have the app where you can see the cameras
truly,
inside?
I was like,
the cameras
Chelsea.
inside is too much. Like that is too much. Yeah.
Whenever your fridge is smarter than you, I think it's time to stop.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like,
quit upgrading.
You are out of string cheese. Yeah, too much. Well, friend, we are so glad you're here today. You've been a longtime friend, listener. We got to hang out at the Experience Conference this spring. One of our Battle Creek friends for stuff here in the Tulsa area. But we're going to talk about youth ministry stuff today, and we're going to talk about where you've come from, how things are going, and some of the things that you think are key pieces to a growing ministry. But because you know them and we love them, we always ask the question, where do you think Chad's still gone on Chadcation?
Hello, Chad.
Hanging out, buddy.
Wherever you are.
Where do you think Chad is at? Any messages you want to send him to the beyond? I don't know. That sounded really grim.
Beyond,
he's fine.
beyond
He's
the
safe.
grave.
Maybe he's sick. I don't know. Hard to say.
That's hilarious. Chad, I think right now you are at Silver Dollar City getting a turkey leg. About to get in line for Thunder Nation, the powder keg.
Yeah.
Where do Christians go on Fridays?
Oh, yeah.
Silver Dollar City.
Oh, okay. Well,
Right?
I mean, Oklahoma, Tulsa Christians go to Silver Dollar City on Friday. Our Tennessee friends all go to Gatlinburg.
Oh.
But it makes sense. He's probably there because why fight fair prices, right?
Right in the middle between Tennessee, Oklahoma, right?
That's it. It's
Dolly.
there.
Dolly's there. You
Ready
got
to
it
go.
all.
Got it all. You got everything you need. So, Chad, save a turkey leg for us, and we'll see you when you get back. Well, Daryn, tell the folks a little bit. Okay, so you left this earlier. So Daryn, we wanted to make sure and get the name right.
Yes, it's spelled weird.
It's spelled weird, but
Yeah.
but you said your mom's name is
George. Shout out, Mom. I know
Shout
you're
out,
listening.
Mom. Thanks, Mom. Just curious names across the family, or like how is the
just
what is
generations
what is the
of boy
taxonomy?
names.
Oh, just boy names for everybody. Okay.
We always joke like that this started because it was a man's world, but
okay.
it's a joke, but we
Yeah.
are several generations in. So like
Okay.
my sister is Alex, my niece is Dustin, Scotty.
Oh.
Okay, my mom is George, not Georgie, not Georgianne.
Not Georgina, like like legit,
she's
just
straight up George.
George.
So,
Okay.
God love her.
Yeah.
That was a hard time. One time I was actually toilet papering. Do not advise this, but to be a youth minister, you gotta fit in with the youth.
That's right. You gotta play the games.
Had that, experience. And so I had toilet paper at a house. We got busted. The neighbor was a cop. He was pretty nice, but he was like, this has got to shut it down right now. And
Yeah.
I let my friends run. I said, I'll be the sacrifice here. I'll be the lamb. All
You
right?
go.
Yeah.
I'll stay. Like
Yeah.
take me.
Yeah.
Like they're driving off and you're standing in the street.
Exactly. I'm like, my
Amazing.
mom knew I was toilet papering. Like, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there talking to this cop, and he's like, "What's your name?" And I'm like, "Daryn." And he's like, "There's no chance." But he's just gonna let it go.
Don't give me your fake ID name.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Give me your mom's number."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, yes, sir."
You could call George.
You can call George. And he was like, "And I'm Sue." And he was so mad.
Oh my
and
gosh.
he's calling that line.
Yeah.
He answers it, and he's like, "Is this
George
is
there?"
officer whatever?
Yeah.
Is George there?" And my mom's like,
Yes.
"Yes, is my daughter okay?" He felt so bad for being so mean to me, and I think that's honestly like my favorite memory of just how this can go, how funny it is. And
Yeah. You gotta
gender
live
neutral
into it.
names. You know, you
gotta
just
live
never know
into
what to
it.
expect.
Yeah. Well, like the Alex and the Scott, Dustin and George and Daryn. I mean, that is a strong play.
It
So,
is. Yeah,
okay.
it comes from my dad's Marine Corps partner. His name was Daryn. And so
Okay.
whether boy or girl, my mom was like, we love guy names.
Okay.
So let's just do Daryn.
That's great.
Middle name Joe. Doesn't get more Southern than that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wait, Joe with the O-E or just the
No,
O?
just the O.
Just the J?
Just
O?
Daryn
Oh.
Joe.
No hyphen though?
No hyphen. No.
Daryn
no,
Joe
no.
Fox.
I
mean,
think my
that's-
mom would have given me a double name if she could have, but praise the Lord. I'm
Okay.
just can hide
it.
the Joe.
That's it. That's it. So good. Well, friend, you've been serving for the last few years over kind of Midtown, Mid-City area for stuff. But for folks that don't know you, that want to get to know you, like of all the things in the world, Daryn Joe, how did you end up doing youth ministry? Because that's one of the things we talked a little bit before. It's an interesting story, a journey, especially into this role now for stuff like of all the things you could do. I mean, again, married to a doctor, living in Tulsa. Like we have so many things you could do in Tulsa.
Yeah.
But why that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it all started at Falls Creek.
Okay.
So have you ever been
shout
there?
out Oklahoma Baptist. Grew
Shout
up
out
there.
Yeah. So I went.
You
as
just connected with 8%
sponsor.
of Oklahoma.
Yes,
Yeah.
truly.
All
The
of
creek runs
Oklahoma.
deep.
That's right.
You know, so spent like 11 summers there.
Yeah.
Straight. Loved it. The first opportunity I had to go back and serve just as like a small group leader. I was like, heck yes,
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And so I went with Harbor. It's a Baptist church out of Ulaga, America.
Okay.
And I was a sponsor for the week. And they did on Thursday night, I believe, they did a call to ministry. And I had come to know Christ at 17. I was really, really new. I was 18, 19 years old. I think I was 2 weeks shy of being 19. So I was a year into this.
Okay.
And I just was like, I think they're talking to me. Like, this call to ministry, what does it mean?
Yeah.
I'm like looking over my
Like
shoulder.
audience of one.
I'm
Yeah.
like, what do I do? And so I go down because like, you know, whenever you feel the Holy Spirit, you hear him, like it's not something that you would do on your own accord. And it's like, this is from the Lord. I'm doing this. I'm going down. I'm literally looking at the altar. I'm the only female there. And I'm like, I totally misunderstood. I totally misunderstood God. I'm like, what is going on? And so I just remember going back to the student pastor I was volunteering under, being like, hey, I truly feel like that was for me.
Yeah.
What do I do as a woman in ministry? You know? And he's like, well, the first place you got to go is to the word. You got to go to prayer.
Yeah.
You got to flesh this out. Him and his wife walked me through that the whole summer. And his wife was the kids minister, like pre-K curriculum, all these things. And I just remember, I still did not know a lot about the Bible. She encouraged me to start serving in the nursery, you know? So I'm like learning things. I'm reading about Bible stories I've never heard. Joseph and the Coat of Many Colors. I'm like, what is this?
What is
and I'm
this?
like teaching it 20 minutes later. And I just remember being like, yeah, like this is awesome. This was a growing moment for me, but there's got to be more than kids ministry for me. And I fleshed out the calling for years. And I felt like the Lord was really calling me to students.
Yeah.
And I never knew another student pastor that was a female.
Yeah.
And so I just served, man.
Yeah.
I just served to my heart's content. I was like an unofficial intern. I ended up being, you know, a paid coordinator on staff with Harbor. And then whenever I got married and moved to Tulsa, we found a church and we just plugged in. And I told the student pastor there, I said, hey, I was called to student ministry. Have no idea what that looks like, but my calling is to be faithful. And so I just served faithfully for 4 years. And one day, you know, God said, hey, I need you to quit your job. And my husband was a medical student.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going in debt.
Yeah.
We're not getting paid.
You are like, for those that don't know, in the medical world, doctors end up making well after a while.
20 years down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, there's money in medicine eventually.
Yeah.
There's a whole front end where it's like scraping by. And if you don't have parents or a spouse to do and earn.
At one point, I was working 3 jobs just to allow him to go to school.
Right.
And
Which, again, on the other side, people are like, but doctors make, not quite yet.
We'll be there one day, and it'll be nice, and I will be retired. Shout out to my husband.
Shout out retiring at 34.
Yeah. But it was hard, man. It was hard. And we, you know, my husband grew up in an awesome family that really could provide for him. And I kind of grew up on just like, hey, you know, single mom, and we gave what we could. And I was just faithful to the Lord with what we had. And So I remember like praying, like, God, would you speak to my husband in this time? Like, you're calling me to quit my job, to do nothing, like to make no income.
Yeah.
What does this look
Yeah.
like? And it was the hardest season that we ever walked through, but it was wild, man. Like the Lord showed up in so many ways. The Southwest meltdown happened while we were out of state.
Okay.
And we came across a stranger in the parking or in the airport
Yeah.
who gave us a check to cover this very specific amount of money. And he just walked up to my husband and was like, this comes from my God account. I've been sitting here praying over you guys, you know, and we both have been missing flights. We ended up on the same plane. We were sitting next to each other, and he was just like, God told me to do this. And you know, so then Hayden looks at me and he's like, God's going to provide for us. And so I was unemployed for a few months, not looking for anything, just looking to be faithful.
Yeah.
You know, we're responsible with what we had.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
God was so good. He provided every step of the way. And then one day my church just called.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, there's been an opening. We want you to apply to be this Hello Team minister. And I was like, that's not students. So I don't know if it's for me, but we'll go through the, you know, Hayden's
Wait and
like,
see, yeah.
just go through the interview, see what it is. And like, let's go. Cause we love our church. And we're like, this could be from the Lord, you know, and it's ministry, which is what I know I've been called to. And then by the end of it, they offered me an associate position for the students ministry.
Okay.
And I was like, man, so I took it. That was in June 12th of 2023 was my first day there. God's been faithful ever since, man.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, which is one of the things we wanted to talk about a little bit is some of the transition stuff, because one of the things I know to be true for your story and then for some of the other churches and campuses connected to y'all is, I mean, it's true for anybody in ministry. Very few folks, unless you're planning a church, are walking into a blank slate,
Right.
tabula rasa. Like there is something that you are inheriting or moving through, whether you were a volunteer or an associate that got moved into a leadership position. But like, what is some of the wisdom of the last year and the last 6 months of leading through transition that you would share with somebody that maybe went from being the kids minister now to like kids and youth, or the volunteer that got voluntold that they're now in charge? Like, what were some of the things you've thought through? What's some of the wisdom that you would give of someone transitioning from maybe one iteration or version of leadership into more responsibility, leadership, or authority?
Yeah. So I got hired on as the associate, and then the following February, I kind of just got a phone call in the midst of one of our craziest match seasons for medical students. And I just, you know, they were like, okay, you're going to be the student pastor now.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the world do
Yeah.
I do? And I think really, if you're going to lead through a transition, it comes with leading up, and it comes with vision casting, and it comes with communicating, but it also comes with trust in God.
Yeah.
Just knowing that you are the person for this appointed time, right? Like he knows where we're going to be. He's carved out our path for us. And it just comes with, all right, God, like if this is what you have for me, I'm going to lean into this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to sit in the chair that you have for me. And so I would encourage anybody that's going through a time of transition, really trust God. The next person you trust is whoever's above you, your senior pastor, your campus pastor, whoever it is.
Someone maybe making that phone call that's looking to you to say, this is what we see in you, this is what we think for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like they have a vision for you clearly, and they believe that you were the person for that role. And so I think it goes, you know, out of a heart of gratitude. Wow. Thank you so much for trusting me with this. What do you have? Like what's your vision for this? Why did you choose me? And coming up together with like, how can we do this together? How can I stay in alignment with what our church needs and what's missing, you know, and just figuring that out together. So I think transitions, and it's crazy, you know, especially in the Baptist world, coming in as a female in this new place, like there was just opinions and diversity on how things should go, and how sweet it was to just be in the middle of that, knowing that, you know, almost 19-year-old Daryn got called to do this.
Yeah.
And through years of faithfulness, God made a way.
Yeah.
And he's going to continue to make a way.
Yeah.
And so you've just got to sit there. You've got to trust him, and you've got to cast that vision right to the people around you. And you've got to lead them well.
Yeah.
You know, 1 Corinthians 1:10 talks about having no division among us, right? But all of us being in a spirit of unity under God. And knowing that if you can cast that vision from your senior pastor, from what God has given you to the people around you, and do it well and get them all on board, like you can lead them through anything. Like truly.
Say a little more about, because vision casting is a phrase that I think for some folks, it resonates, but maybe at some different levels. Like, what are some of the things in moving from the associate role to the lead youth minister for that campus, like the youth ministry lead? Like, what are some of the, like, what were the things when you say vision casting, like, what were the activities or the things that you were saying and reinforcing to your folks to help establish that, reinforce that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a little saying at Midtown,
Okay.
CRO, Chief Reminding Officer.
Okay.
So what's like on our minds 24/7, because this is our job,
Yeah.
is not necessarily on what's we call our volunteers dream teamers. And shout out Midtown Dream Team.
Yeah.
I'm the
Hey, we
craziest
see you. We're
spiritual
thankful. Yeah.
giants on my team. I tell them, my last email I sent to them said, y'all are just mean for the Lord. The devil hates to see them coming. Like, they are incredible. But it's just reminding them, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do we do this? We are putting up check-in. We are throwing away pizza. We are getting in the dunk tank. We are, traffic wanding cars off of Lewis at 8:30 at night.
Right.
All for the means of the gospel. And so it doesn't matter who's in charge of the ministry, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, I guess it does, but I'm saying at the end of the day, what matters is what we're here for.
Yeah.
And reminding them, like, hey, we are here so that these students can have an encounter with Jesus. Like, you and I may see something a little bit differently, but let's get back to, like, let's remind ourselves of why we're here and cast that vision. 77% of Christians come to faith before they're 18 years old.
Yeah.
Like, the harvest is there.
Yeah.
So what are you and I going to do? What needs to happen to where we are running at the same pace into the same path, just after these students for the Lord? And so just reminding them, hey, the harvest is plentiful. Reminding them that these students are here for them, for the relationships, that we get to do this, that God is ultimately in charge. Maybe in 2 years, maybe in 6 months, like, somebody else is going to be in my role. But at the end of the day, you've been going to this church for 15 years.
Yeah.
You've been serving these students for 7 years. It's like, I'm reminding them of their calling. I'm equipping the saints that this is what we get to do, and reminding them of the glory that is all the Lord's that is to come through these students coming to know Jesus and coming to build relationships with them. Like, my goal is to be insignificant. And my goal is to remind them of how important it is that they remember why we do this.
Well, and I think for some folks, that leadership lesson of the way that you lead through others is the reminder is often ironically, or maybe not ironically, forgotten. And then we confuse leadership with, like, either like stage time or visibility, or we confuse it with effort. Like, I think there's a lot of folks, and this is you listening, this is not meant to be heavy-handed. This is meant to be the pause. Like, if the sum of your ministry is what you can exert, then you've missed the chance. Like, involving other people, recruiting is a piece. I think the other is exactly what you said, which is reminder. Like, retention in leadership isn't just continuing to ask, but doing the work of reminder. Because I struggle with vision casting, because that always sounds audacious. When maybe the vision casting is just like, man, thank you for doing what you did tonight to create space for this to happen. Like, it doesn't have to be, there may not be a poster that goes on the wall. Maybe if there's a good catchphrase, I guess. But the idea that, like, what your leaders need to hear most from you is not just what to do, but why we did.
Right. And I think a lot of the time we like make it too big. Like, analysis paralysis happens. We feel like the vision has to be too big.
It has to be huge.
Right. But it's like, the vision is really to be faithful to God's word and to be faithful to these students.
Yeah.
And if we step outside of that, then we just create an avenue for, comparison or sin or burnout, right? Like, we are just called to remain faithful, to abide. And what I love is, like, it's not simple. Like, it's not easy to abide. But it's one thing that we're called to do. And it's like, if we can just be faithful to that one thing, and if we as the ministers of the ministry can remind our dream teamers, our volunteers, our students, our student leaders to be faithful to that one thing, to abide, think of the fruit we're going to produce. So
good. Okay. So one of the things that I love about you, your leadership, and your campus is that it is an eclectic mix. Like, y'all are neighbors. Like that was, you drove over to record today. It took you like all of like 4 minutes. because y'all are like neighbors to where we're living, where we're serving, and we live at the crossroads of a lot of public schools, a lot of private schools, a lot of Christian private schools. Like you were sharing earlier, you have how many school districts?
I have 7 schools.
7 schools feeding into your ministry from a variety of economic status, educational requirement, paid, public, like all, and not just like a little paid, like a lot.
The most expensive school in Oklahoma.
Is feeding into your ministry. And so one of the things that you've talked about is, one, maybe wasn't exactly how you grew up, but
definitely not.
I mean, you want to share a little bit about Oologah?
I'm just a farm
This is the second Oologah, Oklahoma rooting.
That's so funny. Hey, that's just a a sign of how good the ministry is there.
That's
so
right.
Shout out to Harbor, because Britton, who was on here a couple weeks ago, also grew up going to that church, and they care about producing leaders for the Lord, and that's their heart. And so shout out to Pastor Brett, if you're watching.
Hey,
so
thanks, Pastor Brett.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Look what you've done.
Man.
Look what you've done.
But yeah, so definitely grew up in a really, really small town.
Yeah.
Population like 1,100 between 2 towns. Shared Oologah Tolala was the name of our school.
Generously adding a second town in.
It's like, could we afford to keep the lights on if we don't combine between 2 towns? Probably not. Taxpayers are far and few between, But yeah, so coming from the boondocks of Oologah, Oklahoma, where if you wanted to skip school, you could like go to the lake. If you wanted to ride your horse to school, you could. If you want to ride your tractor, you could. Like, sure.
Wait, you got just tractors lined up, just driving in?
The ag barn.
Is there was there like John Deere parking? Was there like
nothing crazy?
Was there like horse tie-offs?
Well, I mean, there was, but I was not partaking in that. But it was just wild.
Amazing.
Anything kind of went. Back roads were what was fun. Owasso was like the big city. But there just wasn't a lot of diversity. There wasn't a lot of economic differences. We were just there to be there. It's
a one high school, 2 town. Like this is everybody's going.
You knew everybody.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to schools where it's like I have no business being there. Like there's no way that I would ever fit in with these monstrous athletes, these high school guys. Like. It's crazy what the Lord can do. Academic all-state, jazz stars,
Regent scholars,
like first chair in the symphony. I'm like, who are these people?
Who is the symphony?
I did good to like get my Snapchat streak in the 9th grade. And what is a symphony? I've never gone to one, so, but these
that sounds
kids,
neat. What is that?
These kids are amazing. And I'm just blown away at, how vast the crowd is, how different they are, all these different talents, all the different, strategies that come into this. And it's like, how blessed am I that they get to call this church their home?
Yeah.
How blessed am I?
So my question for you is, in your role of leadership, in your building of a team, what are the thoughtful things? I mean, sometimes we have youth ministries that we inherit. There are some that we've had guests on talking about strategies for outreach and connection. Like, how do you better connect with these wide range of students? Like, we always want to serve faithfully and well. They haven't all run off or haven't fragmented yet. Like, one of the things we've talked about is that sometimes ministries can become a little bit like dialed in, where it's like this church has a lot of athletic folks, or this church has a lot of band folks, which is not wrong, because those people do move. Students move in herds. I mean, they are dinosaurs.
Where one goes, they all follow.
They all follow. Yeah. Like, there was a year that we had like the whole show choir. That was just like,
that's awesome.
That was a fun year. It was a really fun year.
But your Christmas was insane.
Like when we had worship nights, like the harmonies were incredible. But it was just like, because they were all buddies, and we had a couple folks that were really prominent in that, and so. And that wasn't forever, but for as long as those 2 kids were in our ministry, we just had a lot of the show choir.
That's
so
awesome.
Like, in that eclectic mix though, how are you thinking? How are you leading? What are you doing? Like, I mean, there are other folks that have a range of students. So what are you doing? What should they be doing?
Whenever I first started serving at this church, because I volunteered here for 4 years before I ever went on staff, it really did look the same. Like, it was one student made into 40 students, right? Like, kind of like you said, like you had the whole show choir because you had this one. And I remember in my interview, I was like, yeah, that's great and all, but we got to look more like the kingdom. We got to get diverse interests. We got to get different races. We got to get different classes. Like we got to get it all here.
Faithful to the context you're serving.
Got to be faithful to it. And that was my goal. Like that. And I'm like, okay, so what do we got to do differently? We got to show up for all types.
Yeah.
And we've got to make a place in this ministry for all types, right? So if I have the lacrosse player, great. We can do that in the front yard. You better believe it. You know, make it fun. Add a dead squid in the mix. Let's do some squid beat, you know? But what about my introverts? What about my symphony kids? What about the students who are going to be coming late because they're coming from a private tennis lesson?
Yeah.
You know, how are we reaching them? And so it's like, if you want to attract an eclectic mix, you've got to have a sweet spot for all of them. You know, so it's like, we're not just doing a basketball night. We're also going to have a whole pop-up art area where they can come, where they can, you know, make their prayer boards. They can come and they can color their Nike shoes, and we'll use it as decoration for the next event. You know, like they're making this place their home. And whether they're an athlete or they're the best artist that I know, or they're a singer singing on Wednesday nights, leading their other students in worships, like
using their gifts, a chance to shine and utilize what they're good at as part of the ministry.
Yeah. And a lot that like led to that was our senior pastor talked about, okay, we've got salvation, we've got baptism, but then beyond those two things, you know, sure, they're coming on Wednesday nights to learn more about Jesus and to learn more about his word, but how else are they advancing physically? Like they're crossing the bridge for salvation. They're getting baptized, right? They're growing and learning more about how do they use their hands to advance in their journey with Christ. How do they do it? They serve. You know, and it's like they serve in that ministry, and that ministry becomes theirs. And so how can they serve? Well, we've got student leadership team everywhere where we have a team of musicians. Whether it's the pianist or the vocalist. We have a kid who I had no idea he even played the electric guitar. We're throwing events for all types, because we're just trying to, you know, we're trying to figure out what all do we have going here? What's going to go over well? We do a talent show. This kid, his name's Nathan Way. He shows up with his electric guitar. There's probably 500 people there because we did all campuses, all 5 Battle Creek campuses at this talent show. And he shreds.
Just for everybody.
I'm like, I don't even know if the student has ever come on a Wednesday night, but here he is for this talent show.
A chance to show.
And he is shredding this guitar. And it's wild because immediately after that night, we plugged him into a Wednesday night worship leader. And he's so faithful. And he's leading other students in worship.
Just looking for
and
the
his
chance
parents
to serve,
are coming and supporting. And it's just crazy what it's done for their family. It's crazy what it's done for Nathan's walk with God. And, you know, then I look over and it's like, we have another student who just is the biggest introvert, but the sweetest heart I've ever met in my life. And, you know, she was like, hey, I want to serve by identifying a role for the introverts every Wednesday.
So what did she identify? Because I think you have a solution here. You're about to help a whole lot of people, because a lot of folks just don't know what to do.
This was her solution, her add-in, and she starts showing up with a bag of just cards, like decks of cards. And when I tell you, I've never witnessed anything, and they're making up games. They're making up their own games. These are not like Go Fish. Like one of them's called like Escape or something. It's the craziest game I've ever played in my life. And like kids I don't know how they're becoming friends, because I feel like I made enemies whenever I played, and I'm like, man, this is competitive. But like it's crossing bridges, man. Like it's like my basketball queen that it goes to, you know, one of the biggest public schools in Tulsa. Rival school, our Key Club NHS president, are playing each other in this game and becoming best friends.
Amazing.
And it's wild. And so it started with a deck of cards, and now it's, you know, her idea and her vision and her getting her community group leaders involved has become to once monthly on Sunday mornings. They're making prayer boards. They're making bracelets. They're turning it into like arts and crafts. Crafty girl hangs is what they're calling it.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. Well, I've needed a moment to break that down. Crafty girl hangs.
Crafty girl hangs.
Okay.
All right. I am not a crafty
little
girl.
CGHs?
A little CGH once monthly, you know? And it all started with a deck of cards.
That's CGH 1X. That's for you in the back that are finding a way to brand it. That's CGH 1X.
Yeah. And a lot of Canva and a lot of invites involved. But I mean, this one student was like, hey, I love being here, but people like me aren't, feeling welcome. The introverts are coming in, the music's loud, there's teaching, and then there's community groups where we're forced to talk. What about a card game? What about a CGH? You know, and I'm like, what about it?
Give that crafty girl hang. You just need
that crafty girl hang. Never in a million years did I think, but man, it's crossing bridges. And it's like, now the boys are jealous.
Okay.
Why do they get girls' nights and crafty girl hangs and all these things?
Why don't they have a crafty
And so I'm
guy
like,
hang?
okay, dudes, what do we want to do? And they're like, something probably more hype than that. And I'm like, all right. And so our guy community group leaders have started a hello team for just the kids building where they're getting those guys involved. And I mean, they are fist bumping the heck out of these second, third, fourth graders that are coming in, and they're playing, you know, like gotcha, pop a shot, like all the fun
just
stuff.
Little bro time.
Bro time.
Big bro time. Big bro
they're
time.
going in and they're showing how to like be a bro to all these little bros. And they're doing it
because
together.
that's all the little bros want to do is be big bros.
It truly is the sweetest thing to witness. Like, we have this little boy that comes in, he wears like a Superman cape, and to watch him like fist bump one of our seniors in high school as they come in, and it's like, man, that is a ministry right there. And these students are all
some heroes do wear capes.
Yes, they do. In fact, they do. But man, they're all my heroes. And they've all, you know, just shared and shared and shared. Like, how can we make this a home? And, you know, we've got a basketball goal. We've got a deck of cards. We've got students leading worship. We've got students leading a prayer team. We've got men leading little men on a hello team on a Sunday morning, you know, and it's like they've all found their place. But it goes beyond the students too. It starts with the leaders. And what's crazy and what blows my mind is I'm leading like these crazy important people in the world. You know, like we've got the president of BOK. We've got the director of HR, you know, like just all these super important business.
High level leaders, high level leaders.
I'm doing good to wear jeans when I meet with them, you know? And it's like, man, but how cool. And it's like, okay, but they want to give their time to the Lord. And all of us owe the Lord, you know? It's like this free gift of salvation. I did nothing for it, you know? So let me use everything that I have to show the Lord how grateful I am, and to bring others into this family, right? To bring others to salvation, to bring others to Jesus. And it's like, whether they are the engineer who owns his own company, right? Making drawings of the parking lot to make it more efficient for drop off and pickup and safety and all these things, like, shout out to my parking lot team, you know? Or they're the nurse who knows everything and is making first aid kits for events like dodgeball and dunk night and all these things, keeping us safe.
You should have hey, if you don't have your first aid kit for dodgeball, you should put one together.
Absolutely.
That's a pro tip. Zach,
kit.
pro tip. Have a first aid kit for dodgeball.
Identify a nurse, doctor, medical assistant, have them get the first aid kit ready.
Maybe have somebody on site.
Right. But I mean, like this past week, even just finding areas, it's like, okay, these people want to feel important. They want to feel seen. They want to use their sweet spot. And, you know, that's been my whole goal since February of coming in. It's like, how do we revamp this? How do we get these leaders to find their sweet spot? And it's like, ask them. What fills your cup? Just because they're an engineer, maybe they don't want to build the parking lot map, right? Like I have an HR girly who was like,
I don't need to do work after work.
But she's like,
I'd actually rather be in charge of Gaga Ball.
But truly, the Gaga Ball hits hard.
It does. That's right.
And it's like 9 Square. Man, that is ministry. If we have nothing else, have some 9 Square, have the Bible. Kids are going to come to know Jesus.
Listen, there's a lot of tall individuals that don't have the knees for basketball that love a good 9 Square.
9 Square is my biggest fear on this planet. I very rarely get it in it. Those kids annihilate me. They're like, oh, student pastor?
Spiking on you.
Right in the face. Man, they love it. And I honestly love it too. But it's so true. Like one of my girls in HR is like, hey, I love that you asked me to do this, but what I really want to do is help with events. And it's like, do you? You never get to use your creativeness. You're so right.
She's so confined into the work thing that to have the chance to stretch her legs for something else.
Seriously. And it's wild what can happen whenever you allow people to use their gifts that they hardly ever get to use for the Lord. They're using this gift for the Lord. And just one example of this wonderful lady who came in who wanted to plan an event. Her first event was this past Wednesday night. And it was the first time ever that I, as a student minister, wasn't in charge of where something goes, when something gets set up, how something was going to be set up.
She was on it.
She was on it. She communicated all of it out. She got her own assistants. They were communicating everything out. And I just got to like attend church with my students, and 13 students came to know Christ that night. And it was like such a good reminder that, one, I'm not in this alone. I've got the dream team, and I've got the student leaders who are finding their sweet spot, who are being reminded of the vision, who are finding their area, right? And all I get to do is equip them and watch them just be giants, spiritual giants.
Yeah.
And 13 people came to know Christ. Like,
incredible.
It's incredible. And my prayer is like, you know, there are some churches who don't see 13 salvations in a year. So Lord, may my heart never like be like, okay, 13, that's the, you know, like
may my heart
we
never
can do
grumble.
better.
Yeah.
I'm like, 13 eternities look different. And all I got to do was encourage dream teamers and encourage students. And I think, you know, 4 or 5 months ago, I would have said, no, I have to white knuckle this. I have to do all of this.
Make it happen.
Because I'm the person for this job, and I have to make sure that everything looks perfect. And it's like, no, it literally says in the Bible that our job is to equip the saints for the ministry. So how can I equip the people around me who have also been called here, who have been called to serve here, who have the relationships with these students, who are looking
there before
for
you, that may be there after you. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and that's my hope and prayer that they are. And it's like my hope and prayer is that the students make their relationship with them first, and that they find their sweet spot, and that they're finding where they want to serve, and that our student ministry just benefits from it, man. Like,
well, hold that there, because I want to talk about it a little bit, because you have been seeing some of the fruit. And so I'll brag for you, because you are so sweet and humble. There's been exciting stuff happening in your ministry as of late. And so the two-pronged thing that I want to ask about is, one, share a little bit of what that's looked like. I think that's always encouraging to hear stories of what God is doing. Maybe sometimes if we don't feel like we see God working, to know where God is working. But the other thing I want to ask you about, and I think this is like the practical help for our folks that are watching or listening, is like, how are you following up those new folks, for either the folks that are new to visit, to guest, to check things out, but then also the folks that are new believers, and following up in the ways in which, like, 13 salvations is incredible, but like, what is the responsibility that your team takes on to help nurture and mature with them?
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yes, we have seen a lot of growth. Glory to God. He's amazing. I don't think we would be seeing that growth if we weren't all finding our sweet spot in serving the Lord. And, you know, whenever you do it as a team and not as a one-man show, this is what you see. And whenever you give away the things that multiple people can do and focus on what only you can do, like, I may be the only person that can actually get into schools between the hours of 9 and 3.
Right.
And
that may be your positional gift. Maybe it's not maybe like a talent, it's an availability or a willingness.
Absolutely. It's like anybody could do it, but like, I'm the only one with the calendar right now that could do it. And so, glory to God, that's what I get to do right now. And because of, you know, the campus ministry that I've been able to do after equipping the saints for the ministry, like, we had 51 first-time guests on Wednesday night.
Okay.
And 2 weeks ago, we had 67 first-time guests. And, you know, follow-up is a huge part of that. And we've almost...
What does that look like? I mean, I think some folks, one, would be so blessed, but also so overwhelmed. And so for y'all, like, what do you do when that happens, Daryn?
So I remember, like, crying. I'm like, I'm so overwhelmed. You know, we had the past year before I stepped into the role, going from associate to lead student pastor. We had 211 first-time guests. I think we retained 6 of them. And I remember telling Chad, shout out Chad, over at Silver Dollar City.
Have fun on that ride, buddy. Save that turkey leg.
Telling him, though, in Nashville at the conference, I'm like, dude, our follow-up strategy is non-existent.
Okay.
Help me. Help me, brother. Pour into me right now. And he was just spitting off facts. And he was like, well, what are you doing relationally? And I'm like, you know, I could do better, but not me, all of us as a team, right? And so I spent, 6 weeks creating a follow-up team. And I call them the mom operations. All right, stay-at-home moms.
Gonna break that down again real quick. millennial sidebar, momerations. That's moms in operations or mom ops or mops.
Mom ops. I love that. That's a t-shirt right there. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So the momerations group chat.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
They are.
God, they're on the group chat
Man,
too. Getting it done.
They're on the group chat. Well,
I've never known a mom group chat to not make something happen.
They are
something happen.
Crazy, man. They are the secret sauce behind this follow-up strategy.
Okay.
Whenever you think about it, it's like they are in the classrooms so that the teacher can teach. Yeah. They are doing behind the scenes.
I mean, it's the PTA. Like you took to heart.
And I have the PTA president.
Homeroom moms.
In mom ops.
So you hired a professional, I see.
She is with it, let me tell you. And I'm like, man, how blessed am I to know these ladies?
Yeah.
But they come up after Wednesday night. They come up on a Thursday afternoon and they help me. We have pre-scanned. We have written postcards with our handwriting. It's like they're pre-written.
Yeah.
And we're ready to go.
Yeah.
And
digitally ready.
They sit down and they address it to that specific student. They pray over it. They put the postcard on it. They get it in the mail. And then they take it a step further where they take that information. So whenever we have a first-time guest come in, we have a card that says, "We're glad you're here." Yeah. And we get, their name, mom's name, parent email. Yeah. We get their Instagram handle. If you get nothing else, get that Instagram handle.
This is one of those, like, this is their phone number.
Yes.
Right? Like in so many ways.
They would 10 times rather DM you than receive a text message.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And so much ministry happens from you getting a follow back. Like if a student follows you back on Instagram, you've made it.
You did it.
You've made it.
New metric.
That is
New
them
growth
saying,
metric.
I am allowing you to influence me.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm allowing you to see what I see.
Yeah. And see what I post.
Yeah.
Which
that's where transparency starts, right? Like that is like
that's just a whole level of vulnerability.
I'm gonna try this phrase out because you've been using it. It's a bridge to cross.
It is a bridge to cross. Yeah, it really is. And it's like, praise God for Instagram because that is a tool in the ministry tool belt. And so these "We're glad you're here" cards, we get all this information. These mom ops team, they put it into the system. So that way next Wednesday they can automatically check in. Yeah. And I know who the first time guest was. And then we sit down and we put them in group text with the community group leaders. Okay. Like, hey,
preloaded up.
Absolutely. Yeah. We've got it in our notes app. Another thing that's been huge is just having a copyable, immediate follow-up text in my notes app. We do 3 is for me. Never be alone in a conversation with a student. Yeah. Never be, 3 is for me.
Do that one more time. Okay, you've been good handles, good. This is one of the most practical things. I think for a lot of folks who are like, well, I don't know if I should text kids. Do whatever the policy of your church is. Right. If you're looking for one, spit it back to him again, Daryn.
Yeah, so 3 is for me, and that's really for anything. A personal conversation, a text message, decision encouragement, going to the bathroom, never. Always have another adult with you. Always. And if it could be more than 3, party on, But we
leverage the group text, not just with the students, but with your co-leader, adult, or youth pastor. If you're just getting blown up because you're always the +1 for a group text, that's great.
Yeah, it's absolutely great because you actually get to see
what's happening,
and you can coach up. You can coach up your community leaders on the response.
Text.
By the way, add this in there, or wow, that was amazing. You forgot to say student cafe, but it makes us all better.
It actually starts at 6 o'clock.
And it actually starts at 6 o'clock. We'll be over by 8. But no, it's been incredible. And so that's what they do. We get in a group text, and on that card, we have them write what their favorite drink is. Okay. And we take that copyable text message out of our phone's notes. Yeah. We put it in there. We change the student name. We changed the drink. And it's, it might say like, hey, Sammy, we're so glad that you joined us last night. It was great to meet you. My name is X. Yeah. In the chat is Daryn, the student minister, and your community group leader, Charles, right? Yeah. And so we're automatically connecting that student with 3 adults that they'll know. And then we make them feel seen by saying their name, by knowing their age group, saying, hey, this is the community group leader for your age group. Okay. We also saw that Dr. Pepper is your favorite drink. We're going to have that for you next Wednesday. Okay. Kids get so jazzed. Yeah. They're like, lemonade's going to be there. I'm there. And it's like,
prime time for me.
They probably just don't have a garage fridge full of their favorite drinks.
So get that youth ministry garage fridge. Yes. Get that hand-me-down fridge. Stock it full of their favorite drinks.
And mom ops takes care of the drinks, takes care of putting them in the system.
Of course they do.
Takes care of putting me in that. And it takes, with 4 of them coming together, it seriously takes an hour.
Yeah.
to put 67 kids in,
Yeah.
get them followed up with,
Yeah.
and then me being in that group
God
text.
bless those Fab Four.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. What's their favorite drink? Get them,
Right.
Get them
like
ladies some Coke
they
Zero
deserve
Cherry.
so much more than I could ever give them some Zero Coke. Yeah. Coke Zero Cherry. I'm more of a Pepsi girl myself, but I'll let it slide.
It's been a great time on the show.
Yeah. But and then you're in that group text and you see what kids are responding. And so then Tuesday comes around, I can get back in that group text as the minister and say, hey, I cannot wait to see you tomorrow night. Don't forget we have this drink for you, and close that gap, close that gap, cross that bridge again, you know? And so that is the key. And we are seeing retention that we've never seen before. Of those 67, 30 came back.
Yeah.
And it's like, for a Dr. Pepper, I can do that all day.
Yeah. Again, and that's what the follow-up parts, these connective elements, the relational work is ironically some of the cheapest this. It is not cost prohibitive. It is investing the right amount of time, involving the right people. Like it was not the expensive part of your ministry. Like and some folks will do the expensive part and then not do this heavy leverage, heavy investment work because it matters.
Right.
It so much matters. So
yeah. And it's like the big things matter, right? Like we throw different types of events to attract different groups of people.
Yep.
But then the follow-up is 100% relational. Because how are you going to get any of those students back in that door? You make a relationship with them. And it's not you, the student minister. It's several of you, right? Like it's not just on one person. The more adults
they may not
that
connect
they know.
with you. Like that's the part. Like the eclectic group, and that's where if your ministry is looking like one type of student, it may be because they've only got connection to one point of contact.
Man, yeah.
And so the web of your leaders being able to connect in ways in which you could not. Like I get it. Minecraft, not your thing. I get it. Like sports, maybe you keep up with it sometimes, or like quiet kids who would ever bring board games to church. That's fine. Your leadership base should though, and that's important.
Absolutely. And it just comes down to, you want it to look like the kingdom. You want people of all different interests, and you want people of all different ages. I feel like one of the biggest mistakes youth ministers make is like saying, the 50 and 60-year-olds don't have a place in the ministry. And it's like, oh, but they do.
Oh, but they do. Mom ops.
Mom ops, right? Check in. Or one of the coolest guys that we have is in his late 50s, and he's a skateboarder. And whoever he relates to is, I know nothing. I have never touched a skateboard.
He's just saying things that they're like, that's incredible. And you're like, I don't know what he even said.
It's literally like we speak a completely different language, but like students are coming back for him, man.
Amazing.
And it's like, ultimately they're coming back for Jesus in us.
Amazing.
And it's like whatever character differences, whatever personality differences, whatever age differences, whatever race differences that we can offer them to get them connected to a person that then could lead them to Jesus. That's what it's about.
Amazing. Hey, Daryn, thank you so much for joining us today, for spitting out wisdom, spitting facts, but also like for your humility and your honesty and your willing to be so collaborative in your leadership. That's one of the things that I hope folks heard today, is that the ways in which you are leading is both in patience for the timing that God has appointed, but also the willingness to do the extra work of involving others. Because sometimes it is easier just to do the things that you can do and call it a day. But the real benefit, the real fruit, the flourishing that comes from investing and inviting others to it. It would be one less meeting if you didn't have mom ops on Thursday, but follow up would sure be a lot less.
It would be so crazy.
So if folks want to learn more, connect with you more, what's the best way, friend? How do they find you? On the Instagram, right? So hey, what's your Instagram? Daryn, what's your Instagram?
It's Daryn, Dary like yellow, in J Fox. All right, kind of like Michael J Fox, but Daryn J Fox.
Amazing.
Or my church email would be great too. I would love to share curriculum ideas, follow up strategies, our cards, whatever we can. It's dfox@battlecreekchurch.com.
Okay. Yep. Well, you heard it here, friends. Daryn, thank you so much for hanging out today, and we'll see you next week on another episode of Youth Ministry Booster.